I see we're live on YouTube. Does that mean we're good to go?
I assume so. Brandy, was it wouldn't line up on Facebook?
We use YouTube for the commission meetings.
Yeah, Linda told me to use YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So
This
now
one
I
at
gotta
Parks,
go back to
yeah.
Zoom. Forward.
Yeah, it's going.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
All righty. Well, I call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the August 11th minutes.
Deb?
So moved.
Move.
Second.
Second.
There we go. All right. The motion's been appropriately seconded. I think it's a voice vote. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Hey, Connor, for this one, you might want to have a roll call just so Brandy has the record,
Oh.
everybody that's here.
Yes. Good call. Brandy, do you want to read that off or do you want me to?
Yes, I'll do it. Deb?
Okay.
Aye.
Mayor Boley?
Aye.
Dennis?
You're muted.
He's on
Dennis.
mute, but he's here.
Carmen? She's not here, right? I don't see her.
I don't see.
Correct.
Okay, Alderman Wilson
Aye.
and Connor.
Aye.
All right. Got 5.
Okay. Well, we will, so since that's passed, we'll go ahead and move on then to the staff report, our next item. Jack, do you have any items to report to us?
As you all know, we have been incredibly busy around town. Porter's has reached their final occupancy stage. They've been granted final occupancy and they were open today. I do not know when they're having their official grand opening. I think it's later this month, but the Ace Hardware store is officially open. Price Chopper's got their temporary C of O so they can start finishing the construction and they can have grocery employees loading up the store, getting it all ready for setting up the shelves and loading that stuff up as well. So they're supposed to be ready to go on October 14th. And we anticipate there will be a groundbreaking starting construction on the little strip mall, 8,500 square foot, 7-unit strip mall in the Smithville Marketplace as well. You may recall from last year, we had a shoreline site plan expansion for shoreline boat repair, boat and RV repair, or fiberglass repair, whichever, one of those names. They've started their construction. They're moving forward pretty quickly as well. The second building at the KCI RV Center is under construction as well. So we've got a lot of things moving. Off the top of my head, I do not recall the number of residential housing permits we've had so far, but I believe it's about 27 or 8, be my guess. So we're keeping busy. New building code stuff will be going to the board for their review in October. And then we have the building code enforcement group survey work, which is how we get rated for ISO purposes for our building code enforcement. Helps the higher, or actually it's the lower the number, the better the insurance rating for homes built after the date of the rating. We are currently at a 5 rating, which is actually pretty good for a town our size and with our budget. We're doing pretty doggone good. So I'm pleased with that. We'll see if we keep it. It's based upon staffing levels, training, codes, number of permits you bring in, all kinds of variables. So that'll be going on in November. So we're keeping busy though. That's all I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. Any questions for Jack before we move on? Okay. Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is the comprehensive plan update. Jack, would you like to start us off here?
Yes. Obviously, most of you have been directly involved in some of the task force meetings that have been going on in the last 5 weeks, which wrapped up last week, actually. There are 8 discussion items that have occurred through social media. I believe there's a couple more coming in the next week or so. As it relates to that, there have been many issues that have been provided to you all. At last week, I provided you a copy of the results of the survey that we asked that you do. If you recall, the industrial items survey, the results of what that survey showed with all applicants or all people, which was, it was a combination of the planning commissioners, the board of aldermen, and some staff that answered a little deeper on the industrial stuff. We wanted to provide that with you, along with links to the portal and all the land use map and all those items for tonight's purposes, because we have Heather Brannigan with Future IQ and excuse me, Leslie Deacon with JSA, that's John Stover and Associates, are here tonight to take it to the next step. You are our steering committee, and they're going to ask you to help steer here in a few minutes. So here we go. I'll turn it over to either Heather or Leslie. You guys pick. And
Yeah,
both of
thank
are
you,
muted.
Jack.
There
Okay,
we
and
go.
I think I just unmuted myself. Perfect. Thank you, Jack, for that overview. I'm starting to really start to see some familiar faces through all of your involvement at the task force. And I just want to, first of all, thank everybody for participating in that in the different task forces. I know some of you participated in multiple task forces, and overall, we're so pleased with the amount of feedback and the type of feedback we got through that engagement week. And a lot of that came from you all too as planning commissioners. So thank you for that. Today, during this time of your planning commission meeting, we really just had three primary purposes or insights that we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to just provide a recap, really top level, of the engagement week that we had and the different task force conversations, just to keep everybody in the loop on the types of themes and information that we were discussing. We also want to be able to hear any feedback or commentary on the draft future land use map that we presented last August Planning Commission meeting. And then just wanted to provide you with another overview of timeline and next steps so that we can all anticipate what's coming, because we're getting really far into the process. Pretty exciting to see everything come together, and time for feedback is starting to dwindle. So we want to make sure we're all on the same page, and we've addressed anything that you all want to make sure we address through this process as well. So I'll go ahead and give just a top level overview of the engagement week and the task force conversations. And then Heather, feel free to interrupt at any time to provide any other feedback or commentary on this. We also then probably, if time allows, have a few more pointed questions that we'd like to address to the Planning Commission specifically, but we'll go ahead and walk through the task force meetings and then have comments on the draft future land use map, and then any other time we'll direct to a little bit more broader themes. So first and foremost, the first task force meeting we had was neighborhoods and housing task force. The concept here in July, we had really talked about kind of the roadmap and the overview of our approach to providing that inclusive housing environment that we're looking for the next 10 years for the new population and current population in Smithville. On last Monday, we specifically talked about more aging in place strategies, such as ADUs or accessory dwelling units, which is a pretty common hot topic nowadays in housing policy and comp plans. We talked about the North residential character area and the importance of distinguishing with single family classifications and maintaining the typology of home and the character in that North area specifically. We also looked at kind of understanding, we've been using the phrase live work, and we've been hearing the phrase live work a lot through this process. We did a series of task force polling questions and started to hone in on live work really meeting opportunities for mixed use communities and mixed use environments, in particular with that South character area and the downtown Oasis community area. And then lastly, a lot of the value in this past housing task force was we had a few different voices than we had in our July meeting, and we're pretty excited to have some more representation from, there's a couple of younger families that spoke to the rural atmosphere of Smithville and that being important in housing choice too. So overall, we're pretty happy with that conversation, got a lot of great insights moving the bar forward. The next task force on Wednesday, we had our economic development task force. The three major things we talked about during that task force was, first of all, providing that industrial use and the supply of industrial land for that 169 industrial character area. David of Future IQ shared a lot of the feedback that we got from that survey, which Jack had also shared with you all. And really what came forward through that and through the conversations is just the importance of making sure that Smithville is able to really steer its own destiny and have a say in what happens in your community, being very proactive to having the types of developments and the types of local economic development that's important for you all. We also provided a little bit more conversation and insight on the two overlay districts that we propose on the future land use map. That first one being the 169 South overlay on the west side of Highway 169, and then the second overlay district being up near Smith Fork Park, allowing for promoting commercial uses to complement the recreational areas up there. The theme of economic development has come up in several of our task force, in particular with the small town feel. And while we hadn't talked as much in the economic development task force specifically on the downtown and having that commercial environment, that was brought up through several other conversations to provide a very holistic approach to economic development. In our small town feel conversation, not only did we talk about Main Street, we've been having this ongoing conversation through the discussion board about themes such as vibrant versus classic. What does a vibrant downtown mean versus a classic Main Street? What are the types of things that we can do to help control and retain that small town feel in the downtown? We also talked about the Highway 169 corridor experience, going from this southern area all the way through the downtown, where it really slows down, trying to get people to turn in at that important gateway of Main Street and Highway 169. And then as one progresses through that north residential character area, how that experience changes. And while we hadn't talked about that as much in the July task force, we do recognize that that is a very important part of the feel of Smithville with your really unique city form. So we got into that a little bit more. And then lastly, on Thursday, we had our Trails and Connectivity Task Force meeting. This was very exciting. I think a few of you sat in on that. We started the conversation, as you might have seen too on the discussion board, this important idea of the community rec center that's come up time and time again, and having that disconnect between the community keeps vocalizing, hey, we want a rec center, this is important to us. And then us also facing the reality of, here's where you're at in your community size, here's what you typically need to have that successful supported rec center, community center, and that gap and that delta between what we project the population to be, what you probably need to have that supported community center. And the conversation really flowed well through the discussion to get to this idea that we're very excited about decentralized recreation, essentially, is what the theme of it became. So instead of putting all your attention in this idea of a singular rec center, looking to Smithville on how there's recreational assets all over the city, and this idea of trails and connectivity being a very, very strong driving force, especially in the future land use map plan, and having this opportunity and a really unique, exciting opportunity to have a recreational plan that's holistic in the city, where you can access all these different recreational moments through your trail network as more of a master planning concept of what we can aim to and aspire to. In that Trails and Connectivity Task Force meeting, we also talked about the types of commercial development that really fits into the theme of the lake, looking to grow that economic base of Smithville, capture additional visitor spending at Smith Fork Park, recognizing that as a really strong opportunity to enhance the commercial base. Several task force members talked about chicken and pickle, which when I'm back in the Kansas City area, I've got to check out, because that was kind of a growing consensus that would do great in the Smith Fork Park commercial overlay district. And really what those conversations came down to is it's not just about looking at what the city can provide in Smithville over the next 10 years, but looking to come up with some strategies to really mobilize the private sector to provide additional recreational assets and amenities like rentals or like exciting places to socialize and have that third place factor through their recreation and connectivity opportunities in the city. So it's a really quick summary of what we spent like, I don't know, 10 hours last week talking about, summarized in like 4 minutes. Heather, is there anything that I didn't touch base on top level that you want to make sure we share with the Planning Commission?
Well, I think what really came through was that people really wanted to take control of their destiny. And all of the task force meetings, it was really clear that they didn't just want the future to happen, just whatever the marketplace, whatever would happen. They really wanted to have some input on how the future looked for the city. And I think that was really important. And it was across all task force. And then also this incremental approach to the recreation development was really a huge concept. And at first, I don't think people really understood like how much you can do within the next 10 years before potentially a recreation center could become a reality. But we were really excited about this incremental approach, and that was really exciting to see. Yeah.
And before I kind of switch over to the draft future land use map, for those of you that have participated in the task force meetings, are there any concepts that came up that were either really exciting to you, that you were thrilled to be a part of that conversation, or any lingering thoughts of something that maybe didn't resonate as well as you'd like, that you want to make sure that we're addressing in the comprehensive plan process, and then also making sure that all the planning commissioners are filled in?
I have a question. Did you get a consensus?
Yeah.
What people were looking for as a gateway into Smithville on the south end? It seemed to be divided between let's keep it rural or let's do something different. One person made the comment or the point that Kansas City's going to be knocking on our door, and maybe we would want some kind of differentiation between us and them. So did you get any real strong feeling one way or the other about what people wanted?
Yeah, that's a great point. It came up in the July task force meeting, that moment in that gateway being very important in the city. It also came up again in the housing and in several of the task force sessions. One thing that we hear as a very strong consensus has been this idea of preserving green space and not abutting development of Kansas City straight into the development of Smithville. And so we do feel like that's been very well vocalized through several different stakeholders and at different places. Whereas when you look at the future land use map, we did address that by encouraging the land uses that are the parcels immediately abutting that southern border of the municipality, retaining those as either agricultural or retaining them as their low density agricultural residential land use. So we feel like that's a really strong opportunity to kind of check the box of what we've heard from folks. We did ask a really great polling question in the housing and task force about trying to drill in more on what buffer means, because that's the theme. Buffer has come up, which means something different to everybody. A strong portion of the population in the task force meeting talked about or responded about adding additional maybe natural features or enhance the vegetation that provides a little bit of a buffer too. So to not just have the rural open space, but really enhance that when there's an opportunity, especially as new development comes in. There's a good opportunity to encourage the developers to maybe incorporate additional buffers or make sure that they're very cognizant of that buffer. And ultimately, really in the comprehensive planning process, what we're going to be doing is laying the seeds for guiding principles of that area. And so we will talk about the natural, retaining the natural space, enhancing the vegetation to provide more of the natural feeling, right? And then we have heard people talk about signage, where we're expecting to land the plane on that topic. I think in particular is it's a very big topic, right? That takes a lot of conversations, even further in depth than the comprehensive planning process typically goes. And so we'll be encouraging, we have it teed up right now to encourage additional conversations about signage and potential gateway features in that southern area. Deb, do you think that
Station. Is that an ongoing conversation then?
Yes,
Where
our
people
intent is.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, our intent is to make sure it is an ongoing conversation in Smithville past this comprehensive planning process, because that's going to become more important as development continues in that area and as development happens, not just on the Kansas City side, but in that Smithville side too.
I'm wondering if that might ought to be moved up on the priority list just a little bit in order to differentiate between us and Kansas City now. As we were talking about this, I was thinking, boy, it would really be nice to drive down 169. And as you go into the Smithville city limits, maybe you see this landscaped wooded type area with maybe oaks and pine trees and redbuds and dogwoods and things like that. That would look beautiful in the spring. And people would come in and say, okay, we've just left the city and now we've moved into that small town feel of Smithville. I thought, just a thought that just occurred to me while we were talking. Better
Yeah,
than
that's a great point.
I'm done.
Are there any other reactions, especially about that gateway element or considerations on that buffer space from any of the other planning commissioners?
I love the gateway idea. I really see how it could separate us from Kansas City. So I'm all for that.
I
Can
agree.
you expand for those that are agreeing too, when we say that we love the gateway, can you express what gateway means to you also more tangibly?
I'll try not to use synonyms, but I'm thinking like the transition from Kansas City to Smithville and kind of what Deb was going on there with the natural vegetation. Like that's a great way to go about that and still kind of retaining that small town feel. But I don't know, when I think of some of the like closer areas to us, I'm pretty sure they do have like signage specifically. So that could be neat. I'm really just I think it'd be advantageous to have some sort of transition like that.
I think a really nice welcome to Smithville sign of some sort
Yeah.
would be good there instead of just the population sign down there. Okay, and now you're in the city limits of Smithville, because you get used to seeing that and then you don't even see it. So I think we need something to really pop and let people know you have left Kansas City. Now you're in Smithville. Maybe they'll open their eyes a little bit more as they drive down 169 even.
How about a big rock?
We've got that, so that southwest corner of the bottom, right on north of 132nd, and it has a giant silo on it. Just throw a big LED sign on it for you.
I think it needs to be a little bit enhanced. The sign itself is, it's down there for.
But so the thing is, the where that little black sign that they have is,
Yeah.
that's on private property, but that property, I think, is something that's been up for sale from time to time. So that's something we might want to look at, or because waiting for that property to develop would, you may never get a sign down there, and getting anything in MoDOT right away is difficult. But
If I could, Mr. Mayor, in 2015, staff had begun conversations with MoDOT on what it would take to be able to use the future, and this is the difficult part for us. That's why we didn't try to move forward. If you note between the two highways, the northbound and southbound lanes on the south end of town, how far apart they are.
yeah, it's already graded for a lane.
Yeah, it's graded for new lanes.
Yeah.
And it would replace the existing southbound lanes. As you can tell when you drive, if you're heading south, it's up and down and up and down. But if you're headed north, it's fairly smooth and flat. The north lanes were the ones that were added. So as it relates to that, in that center area, MoDOT was at the time, and I would assume their policies would allow it for the city to, for in effect, lease that area. And then there'd be maintenance responsibilities, and it would be limited in time until such time as MoDOT was ready to extend the highway. So, with the cost of a big landscape sign in the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range, direction at that time was, let's do not spend the money on that at this point.
But a big rock that can be moved,
Yeah. Ultimately, if it's whatever it happens to be, that area is on the table to be used.
Yeah, and then we also did not have somebody that local that had the big rock company that makes the big signs out of rock. So, yeah, that might be okay. Do you know what the price was on that, or we have to go to MoDOT again for the lease?
It would, yeah, and it wasn't a price. It was a trade-off scenario.
Gotcha. Just taking care of it.
And there was a few other things. Excelsior Springs has an existing agreement with them.
So Melissa and Deb, you see the Harbor Lakes rock time to time. I don't even think that would be big enough, right? Do you think something even bigger than that one?
I think bigger, because it's going to be out there on the highway and you want to make a statement.
Yeah. Because you don't want to do anything with, even metal, CNC metal or something too. But if we want to go more natural feel, we'd want something stone or rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know in Goward, the high school, they did their sign. It was plywood that then had stone exterior on the outside of it. So, yeah. So no LEDs, right? We don't.
No LED. No neon, no LEDs.
Leslie, for you and Heather, that's we had somebody come in because they thought we were putting a giant LED sign for downtown, and
Oh,
we don't want to be Vegas.
well, that's one approach.
They get people to turn right.
Yeah.
Might get them to rear
With a
end.
giant arrow, do
Yeah.
like retro style LED
Yeah.
giant arrow.
Well, I just go to Vegas. We go to Vegas and buy one of their signs that went out.
Oh, we could do that.
There you go. Big neon.
Could bury some Cadillacs into the ground. I think
There
that's
you
go.
someplace.
I used to work for that guy.
Did you?
Yes, Stanley Marsh. I worked for that
Wow.
guy. Cadillac Ranch. Cadillac Stonehenge. Oh man, yeah, I worked for him. That's when I worked in Amarillo. Yes.
I think I agree with Deb, though. I think we don't want that too far down the line. We don't want to lose sight of that
Okay.
request, and that we're not request, but we want to really see that gateway announcement that, hey, you've left Kansas City and now you're in Smithville.
I think
Well,
that
there's another reason I think it's a good idea to get started on that right away too, is the fact that we put our prettiest face forward quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got business people going up and down that highway constantly. They see something really nice out there, and that's going to impact them, and they get a favorable impression of Smithville right away as a town or a city that's on the move. And so I think we get more favorable development if we put some lipstick on and go out the front door like that.
But Jack,
that
I got a question for you. We do our parks impact for residential developments. Is it worth looking at doing some sort of fee for commercial development that would go towards something like gateway signage or?
I would anticipate in the coming months that we will have that conversation directly
Okay.
at the planning commission level. And our attorneys will be involved because there are all kinds of vagaries of Missouri law, constitutional law, that we need to make sure we stay in front of, not under.
Yeah, because one of the things normally would fund something like that is tourism, hotel motel type tax, which we obviously know we don't have.
Right.
What about private donation?
Hey, write a check. We'll accept it.
I would be happy to put some money in on this myself, you know, I'm sure, that, but I'm wondering about some of the private businesses and stuff. They have a lot to gain from this too.
Yeah. That's always an option too. Like, and one of the things, if you, which I don't know, it's on our regular for Alderman session, we're doing the roundabout, and you know, one of the things we put in the existing roundabout doesn't have any water, right, Jack? That's why we're doing it on this one.
The existing roundabout doesn't have any what?
Water.
Oh, yeah, correct.
Yeah,
It's a
so like-
MoDOT program. Yeah.
Yeah, so like on
no.
our new roundabout, we're engineering in irrigation and things like that. So, you know, as we enhance things throughout the community, those are the kind of considerations we, you know, if we do a nice sign in MoDOT right away, you're probably not gonna have water. So how do you keep it, you know, looking nice? We've got some nice people that take care of the roundabout that are local, but that's not something MoDOT takes care of for us.
Well, you would want something native and drought resistant then.
Anyway, okay. Anything else, Leslie and Heather? Or we...
Yeah,
Yes.
just with this idea too, obviously, right, there's multiple steps that go into getting something like this implemented into the community. From the planning commission perspective, obviously, you know, besides earmarking funds or acquiring donations to finance this type of thing, is this really this gateway idea? Is this something that's really housed in the planning commission's authority or conversation level, or is it something that is about bringing in representatives from different areas of Smithville or broadening this out to the community more for engagement? Kind of what are some of like the first steps to getting this signage or feature, gateway feature implemented into Smithville?
I would buy
from
in
a-
from the Chamber of Commerce. That would be a step right there. Because the chamber has, you know, the businesses involved. So the chamber could step forward and start trying to push something forward like that. The Economic Development Council, excuse me, same thing. I guess you could put together another task force, a gateway task force of some sort. I mean, whatever the task force, all involved in that, if there is one, get them all involved in it too. There's pull together the ideas and see whether the chamber can help pull the money in from businesses and things like that to help start there.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, and logically, one of the things we're doing after we get this comp plan taking finished and wrapped up, right? The comp plan direction is we need better wayfinding. We've also got to look at that as a part of our transportation master plan that's coming up at some point as well.
Oh, yeah.
Funding mechanisms and stuff like that, you know, those are details, but we also want to make sure that it's consistent throughout the entire town, not just we throw up a one-off like the sign that's there today.
Maybe we need some type of statue or something that has our city logo on it.
Alderman
Something
Blanco,
branding?
happy to hear you say that we need more statues.
Well, just, you know, I was thinking about out to KCI, you know, where they put all those out
Yeah.
there. I mean, that would be different, but anyway, just a thought.
Well, the consistency, Melissa, I think is the important thing, is
Yeah.
having a consistent branded message of either our logo or, you know, the Smithville Thriving Ahead
Right.
sign, any of those things would at least keep it consistent so that anytime someone's on the internet, if they saw that city sign in the form of a logo, oh, that's where I am. Now I know where
Yeah.
to go. It ties it all together.
Right.
So, but yeah, we want to be careful with putting taglines on things, but definitely logo and shape and things like that that are consistent with our other stuff. But yeah, the other thing is we got to remember we have 4 entrances that are on highways.
Mhm.
That one of them's 4 lanes today. You know, you never know what's going to happen with 92. As close to Kansas City it is now, with 29, 35 becoming that
Mm.
as busy as they are. 92 could easily be a 4-lane in the future. So we want to just make sure we start figuring that out. Acquiring land now that might be used 20 years from now for that kind of, and having standards.
And you're right. I mean, Kansas City could be on the west side real quick too.
Yeah, they already crossed 92.
Yep.
So I think that Show Me Realty logo looks like a state, the state of Missouri with a mark there for Smithville. Some guy could donate some of those signs there. Popped up on our new meeting.
I was muted, but now I'm mute.
We're not going to sell naming rights to our signs like some other cities have done with their parks. Don't worry.
I think it's important to note as well that we're talking about a comprehensive plan process that we're in that is a 10-year process. So our focus, while we need to prepare for the 20, 30, and 40 year down the road, I think this process that Leslie and Heather are helping us with is focused on the next 10 years.
Yeah,
So,
and it's funny because if you ask, when we have the Main Street meeting, it's all about the gateway into Main Street.
mhm.
When we do this bigger comprehensive plan, it's the gateway into Smithville. There's a very small group that started, pushing that north side gateway as well. So
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Deb, for bringing up this gateway concept and making sure that this is very clear in the comprehensive plan. Are there any other topics like what Deb brought up from the Planning Commission's perspective that are very important to you or really resonated or felt maybe unresolved in the task force meetings from your perspective?
Or that you've heard from anyone else who's voiced to you?
I will tell you a good thing that came out of the one of the task force meetings last week. We talked, especially in the small town feel in downtown, was murals. We've already had a high school student nearly complete a mural downtown, and I have a second one who's getting ready to start on one. So they listened to that meeting. They weren't super active on that meeting, but they jumped at the opportunity to paint some walls. So
I seen one today when I was downtown, looked good behind the coffee shop.
yeah, it's about a third of the way done.
It looked really nice.
Looked really nice. I liked it.
Mhm.
Yeah, murals came up on the discussion boards too. There are a few people that mentioned that in the small town feel discussion topics on the portal.
Really good
One
way.
question,
No, go ahead.
one question that I had in particular, especially as it relates to the downtown, that I'd love the Planning Commission's perspective on. The conversations in the small town feel task force have really focused on the downtown core of Smithville and the nostalgia and the vibrancy and kind of the beautiful environment of a main street, right, that you all have and people want more and more of, right? Sometimes, and we've talked about this in the task force meeting, sometimes that's something that can be regulated, of course, through design standards or architectural standards. It could also be not regulated, but encouraged through proactive measures with those design elements or recommended design approaches in the downtown. From the Planning Commission's perspective, does it make sense for Smithville over the next 10 years to put together design standards or regulatory architecture standards for the downtown core of Smithville?
Well, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we already have some, right? We have some, especially if commercial buildings go up, we're not getting anything that's corrugated metal anymore. We're not going to get any 100-story high rises downtown. You know, there's a lot of things that help those mechanisms, and almost every building that's I mean, if a building was going to go up, it'd come to this commission anyway. The one thing I really did like about what you guys have put together is expanding that downtown to include more space. That would help us encourage the developers that have existing properties, you know, Curry Real Estate, the Price Chopper building, all those different buildings, to kind of start to look at some of those aspects if they're going to do a reno. I think the strip mall that Curry owns is about in that timeline where they're going to want to start refacing that. And if we encourage that, that might be the opportunity we need to say, okay, architecturally, we need it to kind of fit that downtown Riverwalk look and feel. So maybe if they do come in to do a reno, we have to say, yeah, you want it to look more this direction than just a corrugated metal building.
If I could, to kind of clarify something, Leslie, we do have a site plan standard in the B4 district, which is a substantial portion of the downtown area we're talking about, but not comprehensive. It does include all of it. But we have two levels of regulation. One is if it's a new construction, that it has to follow the site plan standards that we have, which is standard to everywhere. If it's a rehabilitation, there's an exemption created for that if the property is moving to change the facade, you know, or do anything along those lines. If they're doing it in accordance with the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for rehabilitation of a historic structure, then they don't have to go to the Planning Commission. They just have to go through that rigorous state historic preservation and the feds review of that they are actually restoring it to the original intent of the building. Then they don't have to have that added step of coming to the Planning Commission. If they're doing a new building, though, it's kind of a Katie bar the door. So your question, I think, was more directed at, do we have any specific design standards so that any new building built downtown looks like an older building versus, you know, stucco and a 4-story stucco building, you know, with multicolor and all that. Is that what we're looking for downtown? I think that's where you were going. And the answer to that is we have no regulations along that front. But we have a methodology that conceptual overlay district, the plan develop, you know, we can do a conceptual plan overlay that would give us some ability to do that through the Planning Commission versus changing our ordinances.
Right. But the one thing we do have right now is a lot of inconsistency downtown. So it's hard to say, well, you have to match up with this type of building. When max, we have 3 that are the same building. Warrior Shop, Nellie's, and Jeans.
Yeah.
The rest are kind of built as they were built. No, not even matching brick, right? We've got brick next to stucco next to wood on one street. 3 buildings, all 3 different materials. And that's okay. I mean, that works too.
Right, right.
You don't want to, unless you want to turn it into Rainbow Row in Charleston or something.
Yeah, and I think the question really, Mr. Mayor, is that are we, if we're going to have this small town feel in our downtown, do we want to have a visual preference of what we want those buildings to look like? Or if, I mean, maybe it is wide open like we have it now. Or do we want to, other than the corrugated metal siding?
I kind of like the idea of having a plan in place of how we want it to look.
I think we need something so it doesn't continue to be a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the look of the old buildings, but that the front of those, like you're talking about Nellie's and the Attorney and Jeans, but a lot of the other ones are just brick.
But that's the one thing we have to remember about our downtown is, do we want it to be a zona rosa where it looks like it's a planned, look old place, or we take it for what it is, which is the uniqueness of it was essentially a truck stop on the first cross country highway where people built what they needed, right? The movie theater built what they needed. The printing press built what they needed. And then if somebody comes in and wants to do apartments, we don't say, oh, it needs a look, because then you might get 6 buildings that look like Zona Rosa. And then it makes it not unique for a downtown that you want to visit. I mean, Chillicothe is pretty inconsistent too, but it's done it well.
I think a lot of the uniqueness could go along with where we were talking about. We wanted it to be vibrant. And I think you could get that vibrant look with the different look in each building that's going to be built, hopefully, downtown.
I think if we set it to, height restrictions, materials, and things like that versus straight architectural, because architectural changes so much.
Right. I would agree with that.
And then use, right? Like, what's it being built for?
Yeah.
Hog processing plant downtown, probably not going to work. But that's the other thing is, the overlay I'd like to see is some of the other historical overlays they've done is business license typing within the area. You can be a lawyer in downtown, but you got to spend a lot more on a business license in retail.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Damien, for bringing that back up because that came up. I know you mentioned that in the task force. We talked about that a little bit in one or two of those meetings, being an important element to making sure that it's not just about the aesthetics that provide that small town feel, but of the commercial amenities and the types of services in that small town to create a town feel essentially too. So that's a great point. I want to be cognizant of our time today too, and I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about the draft future land use map. I was back here in August, presented that top level overview. I know we sent out this story map links for more details. It's on the portal. Jack's got the hookup with getting it printed and posted up at City Hall for public comment and public viewing. I wanted to just make sure from the Planning Commission's perspective, was there anything that was on that future land use map that you wanted to talk about, or any issues that you've heard through the grapevine or important considerations that we should know with the future land use map as it is now in its draft state?
I have a question, and I know, Jack, bear with me again. I'm looking at this, and in the northern section, the North Residential Character Area, I know that one little section that is marked to be moderate density right next to 169, between 169 and Clay Creek. That's currently zone B3. Has that been changed? Or I know this is just a draft. So are we looking at this knowing that maybe it's currently B3, but we would accept it to going to that R3 for that more moderate density in that one little piece of land that's currently farm ground?
If I could have you clarify for me, because I don't have that map readily available. Approximately what intersection are you talking about?
169 and W up here, right?
Okay.
I don't know if you can see, probably not, but
so
it's.
Are you talking the land that is east and south of 169W that surrounds Clay Creek? And okay, yeah, it is currently zone B3. As you'd indicated, there is no legal restriction on it at this point. Anything in the B3 use district could happen. So I don't think, unless it rezones.
I guess if we wanted it rezoned, if somebody came to us, we're looking at this future land use map saying it's acceptable for that to go to that moderate density. Is that what we're saying with this map? Because that's the color it is.
And that may very well be, I think Leslie may be able to better describe the definition of moderate density on her map that we're talking about. And while she discusses it, I'm going to try to find that map myself.
Okay. Does that make sense, Leslie, what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so just Yeah, just to clarify, you're looking at the area that's fronting that there's existing properties developed in the moderate density. You're looking specifically at the parcel. Yes, and some of the themes that we have talked about too, and with developing this draft future land use map, is the commercial amenity space compared from the zoning into this future land use map. Because what we're hearing in the community and what we've heard through some of these conversations is this idea of preserving this as a residential area, the importance of providing green open space too, to kind of retain the rural feel in this area. So we have not included any commercial uses from a visioning perspective in this north residential area. If this is important to the Planning Commission to include commercial uses in this area, this is the right time to have that conversation. And, you know, it hasn't really come up from the community side and the visioning to have those commercial amenities there, especially with this idea of really trying to emphasize and cluster around trails and connectivity and get people into the downtown to strengthen the commercial base downtown and to strengthen the spending in that area, which was some of the decision making too that went into not including commercial space. We have, you know, we're really open to make sure that this is a future land use map that works for you all. So if the commercial use is important, let's definitely talk about that. Melissa, would you prefer commercial space?
No, I only brought that up because I knew
there?
this was the
Okay.
future land use, but I knew that was currently zone B3. So what I was looking at, this future land map, was going forward, that this would be used saying, okay, going forwards, if somebody came and said, I wanted to rezone it from commercial, which it currently is, to residential, then you'd look at this map and say, okay, by this map, we're saying we're okay with that moderate density. And the moderate density, I guess, is what is just like what's behind it, which is the Clay Creek development. And that's why you put that into the same color as Clay Creek with that moderate density. Is that correct?
Yep, and with just the configuration of that parcel too, it's probably unlikely that you would have a single family development come in there. So you're probably going to be looking at a use that's a little bit more consistent with that moderate density. When we talk about moderate density, we're really talking about the typology of attached or townhomes, more clustered development. It could maybe apartments, small scale, maybe condo, small scale, but more of that kind of in between the high density of mid-rise apartment and that detached single family too, just to clarify that terminology.
That's what I
So
thought this meant. So I just wanted to clarify on that.
And
Perfect.
if I could,
so-
Melissa, I would refer you to the other element that we haven't addressed in this little conversation, is that we're also going to have a character area map that's going to inform that somewhat as well.
Okay.
So we will look at it from that perspective as well, with some, the character area map anticipates the existing uses to remain the way they are. But I think as Leslie indicated, from a market standpoint, the likelihood of that being B3 in the future and used as such is slow to, it's not as likely, simply because of how far away it is from everything. It may have some very limited commercial impact. What the authority of the city gets really, really broad when it's a zoning matter. So there's a lot more authority to say no to things when you're in that scenario. You get the flexibility to move to where you want to go if they're trying to change the zoning.
Right. And I didn't.
You can have them bring the zoning down. That's all I had. I just wanted to highlight that secondary issue.
Okay. That was the only area, because I'm most familiar with that up here. I didn't check all the other ones out, knowing that this what we would hope that things would develop into. So that's all I had with this map.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. That was exactly the type of feedback that we're looking at, that really specific element. And so my interpretation based on what you're saying is that we have it colored in right in your perspective. Okay. Are there any other pieces throughout the city and in this draft future land use map similar to what Melissa brought up that's important to make sure we address in the draft version before we get to finalizing it?
Leslie, I don't know if it would be appropriate, but in that 169 industrial area, as I'd mentioned to you previously on a call between you and I, it is in the character area as commercial development underway in some areas of that, and ultimately some of the industrial land use area that's in the future character area land use stuff is already under development. So we may want to adjust the industrial land use area to the north into the vacant land outside the city to keep us at around that 100 acre number, because we're going to be down to 65 acres in the 100 acres we're looking at before this comp plan is even active.
Yeah,
So,
that's take that all the way to 92, Jack. Is that
Yeah.
right?
yeah, and keeping the vegetation buffer that is on the west of all of that area currently, maintain that vegetation on the west, and then keep it somewhat away from the 169 corridor so that it's not as visible.
Yeah, the 169 west side, I would think would be more of a commercial
Retail type, yeah.
commercial retail or mixed use retail apartment.
But that industrial area, because the street that will be going north-south through there, interestingly enough, is going to be called Industrial Drive. So that may be something we ought to consider.
So I've got another question, since you brought that up. With one of the site plans we've got now going on south of 144th, that area that is currently looks like residential moderate density, should more of that be changed to commercial?
You're talking about not the temporary Nottoway Valley Bank?
Yeah,
Like,
is that going to end up being permanent there?
well, the thing with banks too is, they try to develop near neighborhoods and commercial. So I think the use that we have it there, where it could be a potential apartments and
Okay.
mixed, I think that's a good, because Major Mall's already there.
And
Mhm.
it's on the same lot as Major Mall. There isn't going to be a division.
Yeah,
So-
and you've got a lot
Okay.
more, you'd have to do a lot more improvements down there to be able to get a lot more commercial industrial type work in
Okay.
there.
I just wanted to ask. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because really, if you look at that subdivision to the south of there too, there's no northern exits for them onto 144th, so they all have to go south to go north.
Mm-hmm.
And if we develop that more, that's one of the things we have to look at is how do we get those people onto 144th, and do we have to widen 140? There's a lot to consider down there.
Yeah.
And the topography of that, I mean, you're going straight down a hill pretty much as soon as you come off 169. And there's a lake back there too, right, Jack?
Yes, it's for sale too.
Yeah. We could buy that and make it Smithville Lake, because we don't have a lake in city limits.
Decentralized recreation, adding another
Decentralized
note down there.
That's where we could put that's where we could put the Splashville thing. Zip line into the water, then we cover Reps course over water, then we cover 2 recreation things.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Jack, for bringing up the industrial area. We're planning on that parcel in between what we have colored in industrial and 92. We'll go ahead and expand that into the industrial use on the future land use map. We'll also be adjusting that character area schematic diagram to make sure that we're correctly articulating where development is underway, as well as capturing that too in the schematic. So you can expect those changes coming soon to that. Any other top level feedback on, or more in the weeds feedback on the future land use map?
No, I think you guys have done a great job. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Perfect. As we've we've opened this up for public comment, both on the portal. There's an opportunity for people to look at the maps and the schematics and provide typed comment responses on both the character areas and the draft future land use map as well. Obviously in City Hall, people can provide public comment. We're going to go ahead and leave both of those up for a few more weeks in this process too, to make sure that there's been adequate time for public input. Anything? Okay.
So one of the,
Really quickly. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back.
no, it's
Go ahead.
fine. I just, Chief Klein hasn't been on many of these discussions. One of the numbers that really was interesting, that with our current boundaries and our current zoning, the population could be at 75K is what you guys anticipated, right? Without any more land, any more annexations or anything else, right? That's kind of where we were headed.
With our existing size, is that what
Yeah.
you're talking about, Mayor?
Yeah.
But way down the road.
Yeah, if we built
Okay.
out as we
Okay.
had it on our 2005 comp plan.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that number's probably close to accurate. It may be 75,000 people, but it also may be 75 years.
Yep.
So. Leslie, you have some more comments?
Yeah, just to close out, I know I want to be really cognizant. We've taken a lot of time today. This has been really great. A lot of good conversations. It's been helpful. What's coming next? So we're going full steam ahead. In October, we're anticipating providing you all a full draft of the comprehensive plan. This comprehensive plan structure, just to kind of give you that top level overview of what to expect, we'll of course be providing the background context, which is typical in a comprehensive plan, but then we're going to be really picking up where the strategic plan ended, and we're going to start with the 5 strategic pillars. We frame those more appropriately for a comprehensive plan and adding planning implications. So those 5 pillars are really a guiding factor for the next 10 years in Smithville. We then transition from those 5 pillars and connect into the future land use map and the character area map, so that we can pull the story of the strategic pillars into where this occurs in Smithville. With these character area maps, we'll be providing this commentary and the schematic and the guiding principles of the vision that we've heard for each of these 5 character areas. We'll then be translating these ideas into kind of the roadmap, so what we call for Smithville 2030, where we're looking at, not just the land uses, but starting to pull in the conversations with infrastructure and transportation and all these systems that come into play with the land uses, of course. And then we'll be transitioning into the implementation chapter and providing that framework of how do we actually do this over the next 10 years? What are the priorities? Aligning that again with the strategic pillars, but also aligning that with the character areas too, so that it can be very digestible and very clear of how these implementation ideas are framed within Smithville. With this draft future land use map in particular, we're again looking to get this finalized. If there's any other comments from the Planning Commission, feel free to get those either sent to me directly, sent on our portal, or sent through Jack to forward to me. And hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we can get any other feedback from you all so that that can be finalized. And again, we'll be looking at that full draft future land use map, the full draft comprehensive plan in October for you all to review. It will then be up for public comment as well. And in the coming weeks, we're really starting to dive into the implementation chapters. So in action steps, so as we look through that, our intent is to provide some of that information back to Planning Commission before it's put in the whole draft version, so that you can kind of see some of those action steps and how we're translating a lot of these ideas, like the buffer, into implementation strategies too. So be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks, and then in the next month, the draft comprehensive plan. Any feedback that you all have, or anything that you want to make sure is addressed at any point in the comprehensive plan, or if there's something that's important that you haven't seen in any of the task forces or haven't heard from me or David in the strategic planning process, definitely reach out to us and get in contact so that we can make sure that that's incorporated adequately into the plan as well. We're very excited to come back in a month and share where we're at. Any last questions for me or Heather before we go ahead and turn it back over to you for the rest of your Planning Commission meeting?
And please participate in the discussion topics too. That'll be on the, excuse me, portal in the next couple of weeks. There'll be 2 to 3 more to come.
Awesome. Well, it doesn't sound like there are any questions. Thank you both so much for the great discussion. Looking forward to next month. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is number 5 on the agenda, site plan approval for the Nottoway Valley Bank off 144th and 169 Highway. Jack, for that project, can you give us a staff report?
Yes. I have just shared my screen, so I think you can see this.
Yes.
And I'm going to use my cursor here with the X on it to show. We're talking about a building that looks like this, going in this location. On the site, you'll see this is the entrance up here onto or into the major mall. And then the proposed entrances come in and then head due south on their paved road, roughly to the corner of 169 and 144th. Currently on that site are all the storage buildings. This picture actually shows a bunch of them. The building is proposed to be a modular building that will come in sections, assembled, and then make a bank. There are various photographs here on this sheet that kind of show what they'll look like. It's considered temporary from the bank's perspective. It's not going to be, one of those gigantic brick and mortar or limestone facades of the old banks of the past. It's a 3 to 5 year time frame they're looking at. They want to move into the community, and they want to do it at this location. My guess is for testing the market and hopefully being able to expand into a full building location in the future. The building does have the 3 different levels of the definable bottom, middle, and top that our code talks about. It's got the various breaking areas of the facade on the front with vertical articulation. So you have vertical and horizontal articulation. All the colors are roughly earth tones. We had conversations, and Chief Klein is on as well. I see my internet's weak here. There is a water line out front that has sufficient fire flow for the commercial area they're in. Everything's good on that. This doesn't show some of the infrastructure improvement issues, which are the offsite, and by offsite I mean offsite of the area you see here of stormwater retention that they will be doing. Our Public Works Director, Chuck Souls, has been addressing that. The stormwater plan's been approved on that issue. They're going to use an existing commercial entrance onto the state highway. There is no changes needed to that. It's the anticipated customer use of the bank is going to be probably less than most of the retail spots in the mall already. So they covered side to buffer between them and the residential in Barton Heights to the south. So from the staff's perspective, they meet all of the elements that lay out in the site plan ordinance. We do have some ultimate design stuff related to the detention basins that are subject to the building permit plans that come later. Although that stuff is in review, and hopefully by next Wednesday, when the Board of Aldermen takes the matter up, we as well. On this project, I believe it's Alex Toy is the representative for the bank who can either make a presentation or he'll be available for any questions that you may have as a commission as it relates to the matter. With that, I'll.
Good evening, everybody. This is Alex Toy and Jason Ellis with Banker Security. The Banker Supply Equipment Company is on the line with us as well too. And we'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Well,
Jack, I think there was one thing, the existing monument sign that's located on
right here.
this area, right in this area, right up in here.
Yeah.
That will be used for the main monument signage for the for the bank itself. There may be one signage added to the gabled end on this side of the building toward the street frontage to allow for visibility, but I think that's what the bank has got intended right now.
Sure. And your sign, with this layout, the building itself could have as many as 3 signs, and sharing one sign for the entire development wouldn't require a separate permit for Nottoway Valley Bank in any event.
And Jack, as you'd also mentioned, at the request of Mr. Klein, we did show this area right in here will be concreted instead of using the gravel pavement. And the intent is, after the initial time frame set up with the lease with Mr. Majors, the site will be put back to the original conditions, what part of the conditions are for that property.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you if you want to seek a motion, or see if anybody wants to open it up for discussion, however you want to do that.
Sounds great, Jack. And what I'll say too is my internet is cutting out, so apologies, but okay, it sounds like we've heard from the applicant. Do we need to turn it over for public comment as well?
I don't think we have any. I'll make a motion to.
No, this is. Mr. Mayor, we lost you.
Oh, I said I'd make a motion to approve the site plan.
Okay.
I just stopped talking. It wasn't, you lost me.
Do we have a second? Okay.
Second.
There it is, Melissa.
Okay, so Brandy, did we have anybody register for public comment? Okay, so yeah, Connor, it's just discussion now.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so we've had the motion in second. Is there any discussion amongst the commission?
Will this eliminate the temporary coffee trailer that's there right now?
I believe the temporary coffee trailer is north of the existing site. If anything, it may have to move during the concrete install, but no, it's off their particular lease site.
Yeah, there's approximately 70 some odd feet between the trash dumpster enclosure that there's now in the first part of our parking area. So we did allow for that. That way, if any other uses are needed, or as I said, the coffee trailer will be able to maintain that.
Is there any additional discussion on this item? Alrighty, are we ready for the vote then?
Sure.
Okay, seeing no objections, then Brandy, could you please call the roll?
Yep. Deb,
Aye.
Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
5-0.
Alrighty, so that one's passed.
Yep, this item will go
Folks,
to
we
the.
appreciate that. And Jack, I'll talk to you later this week.
Okay, yeah, it will be on next Tuesday night's agenda before the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
We appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to item number 6 on the agenda then, the site plan approval for the Smithville attic storage off 136 and 169 Highway. Jack, could you similarly give us a report on that one?
Yes, I'm showing you the screenshot of the layout of the proposed building. If you look on this picture, roughly where the hand is where the existing building that will become the medical marijuana facility. It's the old Full Features building. Full Features is now moved over here. The proposal here is for building a 2-story attic storage building in this general vicinity, with 169 over on this edge and 136th over here. So the access points allow them to come in, meet through here. This project, as it relates to the, and this is a bigger overview of it, you can see the building for the attic storage 2-story is here. They also have future construction of several mini storage buildings. This page in particular shows the buffering along the south. This buffering is the most intense buffering that they have to have, because south of them, in the Oak Hills area, south of them is all of the single family residential homes off of 134th Street. The biggest issues we addressed with this applicant were related to fire department issues. In particular, there is only a 6-inch water line that accesses this site off of the west side of 169. It's a 6-inch water line. There is a 10 or 12, I don't remember off the top of my head, on the other side of the highway. And in order to meet fire flow for this project, they have to have 1,500 gallons per minute. And there's 2,000 or 3,000 across the highway. But with the 6-inch line, it's an old line that was acquired from a water district. And water districts don't have to put fire hydrants on. So there are no fire hydrants on any aspect of that line. So we can't even do a test for these folks' water to get where they're at. What we do know is north of this 6-inch line substantially, where KCI RV Center is, they had to upsize their lines substantially, all fed off the same 8-inch line, by the way. They had to upsize their lines substantially to meet the fire flow levels needed for them. Same thing at 1,500 gallons. So we do not anticipate that their current use of that 6-inch line would work. So it'll require a bore from the east side of 169 all the way under all of that MoDOT right of way to get an 8-inch line over into their property area. Considerable expense, but they also understand that it's the only way that they'll be able to get the fire flow they need for this commercial structure, these commercial structures. And then the other aspect of it was they had originally proposed a waste stabilization pond, because there is no sewer available to them further to the east. There will be eventually, but none yet. And they were informed they had to bring that waste stabilization below grade. They couldn't have an above grade system. We don't allow above grade. And those changes were made. Current site from the upper northwest corner of it all the way through, all of it drains roughly to then is to expand the pond, improve the dam ends, and then it would all then drain under MoDOT highway as it currently does. It just has to slow down here. That study has been completed and approved by our engineer and our public works director. The significant issue for this is when you look at this, nearly all of this site will become paved as it relates to this project. So it does impact a substantial amount of the stormwater. So that's why that basin has to be so much bigger. The use of this site as a storage site like this has much less traffic than any of the other commercial entities or uses. It's a very low traffic use. They did a cursory traffic impact. MoDOT has no concerns over it. There's no turn lane requirements. And for some reason, oh, maybe it's on this one. one of the documents that I'm trying to find ultimately has some aerial views of what the building will look like. It's going to be stucco combined. My screen's not sharing. You can see some of the photos in that first sheet that showed you what it's going to look like. So the corners of the building, this would be the extreme northwest portion of the building. And if you recall from that other page, the building has steps on it as it moves out towards 169. So it would be this area, and then it would come out and step out to this area roughly with another corner detail here, showing the side from inside the site looking towards 169. You have the same feature with the base, middle, top, all distinct. The vertical articulation coming through the scenarios of these entry points that you see here with a lot of glazing at the north end and some glazing at south end as well. Same concept. So they meet the stormwater calculations from their stormwater report by constructing it the way they are. The biggest issue for these folks, as I said, relates to the underwater or underground line of water they have to run across the interstate there. That is the most significant issue. And that basically covers the point. Staff's recommendation is that it meets all of the requirements of the site plan ordinance. But for some reason, and I need to highlight this to you, I do not see that the applicant is available on this Zoom. And I've sent them 2 different people an email to try and to let them know that we are moving forward tonight. It's going on, but I haven't heard from them, so I'm not certain what's going on. They were also provided this information last week. So they've accepted all of the comments that staff made previously, so they should be good to go. But at this point, there is no applicant here to speak on this particular project.
So first, I guess we need a motion, right? So I'll move to approve site plan for Smithville Attic Storage.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so one of the things when this originally was brought to the planning commission is to allow for multiple entrances on this business entrance, right? Single entrance. One of the concerns was boats and RVs. So it doesn't look like they're going to be storing boats and RVs on an inside storage, right?
They have talked about it. They've also talked about maybe not, all of it relating to issues associated with fire protection requirements. Chief Klein has laid out to them what the requirements are for both of them. So they have thought about moving the indoor storage out of it, indoor RV storage. If you look at the one building, let me bring my screen sharing back up. So on this building, potentially, they've talked about would potentially be an indoor storage of RVs. So from that perspective, keeping in mind that their current plan is before they build any of these buildings, they've already flattened it and have put gravel in so that they can allow outdoor storage, just like any other B3 property. They can do outdoor storage. They have began putting up fencing already because they know they're going to have the fencing on the south end no matter what they do. But if they don't build anything, we're as a city limited to what our enforcement mechanisms are on those issues. So we are triggering all of the buffering with the construction of the building. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, my biggest concern is when we talked about the drive entrance It was going to be 2 businesses. Now it's 3.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm going to guess the retail location that's going to be there, 2 retail locations that both have a similar product. One's prescribed and one's, just grown in your yard. But the, I think there's going to be a little more traffic to the medical marijuana facility than the landscaping facility. Just guessing. For those of you that
Ultimately,
they both got a lot of
yeah.
It'll be mostly at night though.
the ultimate, yeah. The ultimate question as it relates to the secondary one is if there will ever be product available in Missouri, and in particular this site, simply because we haven't seen any manufacturing and grow facilities making progress statewide. There's some movement, but not very much, not enough to supply the state. So
yeah, but they'll
I
get
know
there.
that medical facility had a proposed, they had a proposed November 1st start date, and they've kind of hit the brakes on that date because I don't think there'll be any product for them to sell.
Well, the thing with the other building that's already there, they don't have to come back to planning and zoning because it's an existing site, right?
Yeah, it's not only is it an existing site, they're not literally doing nothing to the exterior, other than changing out windows and making it secure under the state law requirements that any medical marijuana facility has to have. They have to have all that added security, fencing and interior beefing up of the walls and all the security and videoing and all that that they've got to bring in. So, but yeah, the building's going to be what the building is. An old metal building that's been there that was full features until a year ago.
So did you say everything will use this one entrance? All
Yeah.
3, potentially
Yep.
all 3 businesses will
Yep,
use?
everything comes off, yes, off of 169. It'll be the right in only off of 136 there, for southbound traffic. They
No,
will,
okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm talking about into where the storage units are, not 169, but is there just going to be that one entrance that's currently there where Full Features was?
yes, they
For
will
all
have
3?
the existing entrance comes in. You will come in and go to the left into the medical facility, further left for Full Features, or straight ahead and to the right to
Okay.
head into the other areas. The first stopper of any stopping for the folks coming in is all the way down here where the hand is showing, which is some 150 feet, maybe 200 feet in. So there isn't any queuing backups or anything of any concern. They've got direct access in. Everybody coming in, they have indicated that the directional signage for Full Features versus the medical facility versus the other facility will be in this area as you come in. So you'll come in and then there'll be signs that say storage to the right or to the left, Full Features to the right. And then obviously the medical facility will have its parking lot right there in front of it as well.
And you feel really comfortable with the water runoff? I know that was a big concern for the residents there on 134th. When we have a really hard rain, I'm really concerned about the water runoff. So you feel like our studies really covered that?
Yes, not only has it covered it, they are building on this edge. You can see trees growing up or being planted here. Those trees will be put on a slight buffer, or berm, so that all the water coming from the houses will come and hit that berm and run to the east to that basin where it currently runs. You can see the lines on there are the drainage area where it all drains already. And that pond is currently about the size of that hand. So they're massively expanding this basin. So it'll be a green basin with grass in it in the areas that aren't maintaining water, but it'll have sufficient storage in there for not only their site, but the site to the south where all the houses are. So all the drainage that currently goes into it, plus the rest of the site pickup, all go into that site.
What
and
about security lighting? Is there going to be a lot of security lighting in there? Because I'm thinking about the residents.
No. No, there will not. As it relates to these buildings, all of the lighting is side mount attached to the building, shining down around the door.
Okay.
And then these trees will help buffer that as they go. There's an existing, it's been there for years and years and years, a very tall 8-foot wildlife fence that goes almost to here. So it runs along this area to about here, that is currently vegetated with ivy of some kind. And they're going to extend it down to here and then put the trees in, which is the added buffering that they're required to put in. And then on the other building, you see buffering up north to beautify that intersection a bit.
All right. Jack, unless I lost you, it doesn't sound like any other comment. Do we have any other questions before we move to vote on this?
Yeah, I have one. Jack, is there any way we could add additional buffering towards the east, either either side of that pond?
Yeah, if the planning commission wants to identify it in there, certainly we can. We've focused it on the building where they're at up here. Now, are you talking in this area? Are you wanting to see more, or here?
No, the first one you did, because I mean, we literally just got in talking about our gateway sign, which would be right there.
Mm-hmm.
And our gateway is going to be attic storage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
No,
the only we can certainly throw it out there to add it in or to adjust where they're at with it. As you can see up north, they've got clusters of trees as our plan requires. It may behoove us to move all of this down here. What I don't know is this is going to be a dam, so it's not going to be an area that they're going to want to plant trees on. That I can tell you.
You could hedging or something, but yeah, that's just.
Yeah. It may be better to move it on the other side of the lake up into this area because that'll be high. And that will give us a better chance to buffer the buildings from view.
Well, yeah, but if you do that, you got to buffer the south side of the building that they're proposing right now too, between there and the dam a little bit. But if we could throw, add that in there. Just because we're literally, this 132nd Street is the south border, right?
It's a little further south, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 4 blocks south. I mean, it's the south end of this.
Still.
Yeah.
So with you saying that, Mayor, is it possible on the south side? Because I know that house that's right there to the south of this, of extending those trees clear out along the pond. Like clear out to the corner.
Ultimately, we can certainly throw it out there. What they've done here is added the trees in what's called the building buffer zone. Any place you put a building, you have to put these trees in for the buffer. I can't zoom in very well with this version that I'm using, but down on the
But I think if you could,
the bottom, it lays out.
See about doing that.
The schedule.
And then my thought was when you were talking about the dam for the pond, maybe you can't put trees on there, but could they put like pampas grass along there just to kind of break that up? It wouldn't have to be solid, but just something to put a little bit of decoration.
So this lays out everything. These are all the recommendation. Sure. And ultimately, here's what I would suggest would be the best method. We have a motion and a second. I would suggest that one of you.
Yeah, so I'll chipmunk on us. So I'll just go with, I move that we amend the
Yes, that's,
recommendation to include additional buffering on the south and east of the proposed building.
Second.
Sorry, south. Yeah, south.
You're-
South. It would be the north side and west side of the retention pond.
south.
right.
No, you
No,
want it on
south
the
of the,
south.
south on the retention pond.
Well, what would be the north side of the retention pond, right? North, south of the building, north of the pond.
No, I want it
Right.
south.
Okay.
Next to that personal residence right there, that's to the south of it.
So the south border, and then also along the
East.
east side of the west side of the pond. Because if we, or do you want to try to do, yeah, east side of the pond?
I would like to look at like some grasses or something on the dam on the east side of the pond.
Watch your language. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I can do is you all make that recommendation that they,
Yeah.
whatever the motion was to increase it. And then I will provide that to the applicant and hopefully they will have it in the plans showing what the recommendation from the commission is into those new plans so that the Board of Aldermen next Tuesday would have the ability to then address those issues directly. Yes, they meet it. No, they don't. That type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes. And so, Brandy, were you able to capture that verbiage? I know usually when we make amendments, we have to have it like exact.
So I have a motion to amend to include additional buffering, and was it to the south and what?
East, I think.
South
Yeah.
and east, okay.
Yeah.
South and east of the building?
Oh,
Pond.
pond. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Pond.
All right. And I believe, Jack, we now move to a vote on that amendment since it's been seconded and we need 2/3 vote. Is that right?
No, it's just to amend. So it's a motion to, it's been made and seconded to amend the original motion. So you have to have 2 votes. You vote on the amendment. If it passes, then you have to have a vote on the amended motion.
Perfect. Okay. And so for the amendment, we'll do first. And will we do a roll vote
Yes.
for that one? Okay. Brandy, I'll turn it over to you.
okay, Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Deb,
Excuse me. Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
5-0.
Great. So the amendment has passed, and now we could potentially move to vote unless there is other discussion. Is there any other discussion before we proceed into the overarching vote on this?
As much as I want you to really exercise your Robert Rules of Order tonight, I don't have anything else.
All right. Well, it looks like no one else does either, so we can move this right along. So, Brandy, will you please call the roll on the overarching vote for the site plan approval?
Yes, Deb,
Aye.
Mayor Boley,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
5-0.
All right, it is passed. So we will move right along then to our last item on the agenda, number 7, site plan approval for the Herzog Foundation offices off of 188th and 169 Highway. Jack, could you please give us a staff report on this one?
Yes, I can. Unfortunately, for some reason, I cannot get internet service to pull up my screen anymore, and I can't get anything to show up on my screen. You were provided copies of this site plan. It has an 83 space parkings at the west side, a roughly 17,000 square foot, 2-story building in multiple wings that would go as the heart of the structure, about in the lot, roughly on the line of where the existing Catholic church is in the area from, as it relates to 169 and 188. The facility itself is, as I recall, I'm going off of memory because I can't read it off the documents here. It was that it's stacked limestone on the sides of the building, and it will have glass on the face of the gable ends in a very attractive architectural feature, to the extent that it has the stacked limestone from the floor all the way up to the gable ends or the roof to where the roof is. The standard middle, base, middle, and top, different to make it definitive, are not brick structure. If it was a brick building, you may have some alternative accents, which this building will, but it won't be that definitive stucco type requirement of 3 different layers on the building. Very, very unique architecture. It's certainly an attractive structure for the area. This issue, this application is interlocked with a lot of infrastructure issues. If you may recall, back when this went through for the zoning and plating portion of this, there was a development agreement regarding infrastructure improvements along 188th Street and with sidewalk and curb and gutter on the south side, so they can take care of the stormwater, but then there'd be sidewalks from 169 and over, all a part of this. And in that development agreement, the applicant was required to coordinate with MoDOT, because MoDOT's been working on the intersection improvements at 188th and 169. From the time that process went through to the last month that we've been working with the applicant and their engineers, the brakes have substantially been placed on the product output by MoDOT. Emails are going back and forth with Sasan and his folks regularly with MoDOT. When are we? Yeah, so as of speaking today, they don't even have the elevations of where MoDOT's going to put their road. So it makes it very difficult for them to add those items in to the site plan. That was the original hope, that they would be able to just do it all, coordinate with MoDOT and do it all. That isn't going to be able to happen because MoDOT's not even close to being ready. Once that happens, there are plans in place. So we are talking with the applicant as it relates to, let's address the infrastructure improvements as needed on a timing level, but that goes directly to the Board of Aldermen because it's a contract with the city. But ultimately, as it relates to those items, we're still working on those. They have been assured again that by the end of the week, they should have their data from MoDOT. That was last Friday as well. But I'm confident eventually on a Friday, they will have it. I just don't know which one it'll be. They have performed a stormwater analysis of their site plus all the other sites. One of the other infrastructure issues that has come up is that currently the culvert under 188th Street that takes water from the north that comes through their property, it currently is undersized. The road overtops in heavy rains already, and their proposal is to do their work on 188th Street. So there's some issues that we're working with them on as it relates to the city upsizing that pipe. Their development doesn't impact that water. They're just obligated to put sidewalks and curbs on the south side of that road. And it's hard if you don't know where or how much water is going in. So the city Public Works Department, city administrator, development department are all working to try and come up with a timeline that'll work for them and the city to try and get all of these products and stuff in place. The current iteration has the initial construction would be from their entrance, 275 roughly feet east of 169, all the way to the east to the Main Street side. They would be able to do those improvements up front. And then when MoDOT came in to do their work. There would be some kind of coordination as it related to getting the rest of the public infrastructure stuff in there. Everything about the building itself, they have presented, and you can see on some of your document pages, an overall conceptual master plan for their site. It's not for approval yet, but on the east side of the drainage area, you can see trails that go through there. They have 4 cabin structures that they would potentially be coming forward with in the future. The use of those, et cetera, would be presented at that time. But that their plan is to make this more of almost a resort location. If you look at the aerial views on the plans you've been sent, very attractive site, much more landscape buffering than the code requires. They have plenty of trees, but they are really beefing it up from a landscape scenario to make this a really attractive site. The last issue that took some work, but they were able to work it all out, is Chief Klein and the engineers for the applicant worked out to make sure that there was sufficient turning radius for the fire trucks to be able to get in, get turned around in accordance with the code. It's my understanding now that Chief Klein is comfortable with the changes that they've made as it relates to the entrance, and they've clarified some things. So he's comfortable, he can get in and get turned around. And we're not concerned about fire flow because there's a 12-inch water line on the north side and a 10-inch water line on the east side of this site, all of which real close to the booster pumps as well. So they can have all the fire flow they want. We're not concerned about that aspect of it. When they get to that point, they will have their choice of connections, but we do not have the infrastructure connections identified yet specifically. That covers all aspects of this, other than, like I said, the kind of offsite infrastructure issues, the curb, gutter, sidewalk, stormwater under the road, all are still up in the air. We'll have to address that with the Board of Aldermen in their development agreement. But everything else, their storm detention, their traffic studies, all of those things have been submitted to our engineers. The storm's all done. We got the most recent, as they pick down to the very end on the traffic study stuff, that most recent stuff came yesterday, and it was forwarded to our engineer and our public works. Do not see a significant issue with any of that. It's just a matter of getting it down to a comfortability for our engineers and their engineers that they're in agreement on where things are. On your current screen, you'll see Anthony Luca, Dirk Talley, Kevin Weininger, Sasan Mahobian, all represent in various stages the applicant. Primary point of contact for the design phase has been Anthony Luca. So I'm comfortable with where we're at. If you have any questions of me, we'll get to that in a bit, but I'll turn it over to Anthony if he has any comments or additions or additional information he'd like to present before you guys make a motion.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Jack and Chief Klein specifically, for your help in getting us to this point in the process. It's been great working with you so far, and looking forward to this project. It's a very special one, and I know we're very excited about it and really excited about what this site's going to be. I think you did a great job presenting it. I don't necessarily have any additional comments, but we're all here to be a part of the process and to field any questions you all have.
Great. I think with that being said, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the site plan so that we can open this up for discussion.
So moved.
Second.
All righty. Motion's been made and properly seconded. Are there any questions or comments from the commission?
I just want to verify for sure that you're really comfortable with moving forwards with this, with not having the final from MoDOT.
From the city's perspective, we're comfortable. What we don't know is how far down the ground's going to go for where the road is. We know it's going to be cut And the limited information they've given us indicated it won't be cut any farther than 275 feet back, which is where their entrance is.
Okay.
And it looks as though my screen just popped up the screen share. So after I did all that talking, here it is. Sorry.
So I guess, Anthony, are you okay with that? With where this is, where you guys will start doing your work until you get the final from MoDOT?
Yes, we're doing our best we can to provide them as much information and kind of push them along as quickly as we can. And Sasan's been a great help in keeping that line of communication open and frequent. I think we've come to a good spot where we feel comfortable with the point of handoff from MoDOT to our development that's going to eventually result in a successful project for everyone.
I will say it looks really beautiful.
Yeah, it does. Is this all going up together, or are you guys going to phase these buildings in?
So what's on the agenda for today is the main building, like Jack had mentioned, and that's all going to go in as a phase one. In the near future, you can see off to the right, there's kind of 4 dash cabins. And that's just to kind of get it on your radar that it's a potential for the future master plan of this development to come into something like this. But when that time comes, we will handle that conversation and come back before you all if needed.
I have a landscape question.
Of course.
I know I saw that you had a lot of trees, etc. Will you be using Missouri native type trees, drought resistant, not invasive species is what I'm getting at?
Correct. Yes. Yes. Both the owners and the landscape architect on this project have been very sensitive to making this a natural feeling landscape. We want to already play off of the richness and the character of this site with the woods and the kind of drainage creek off to the east and the grasses in that area. So yeah, using that as inspiration and pulling those natural species into the rest of the landscape is very important to the project.
Well, I know that Missouri Department of Conservation has been begging people to please stop planting invasive species, even though they're still being sold by a lot of nurseries, etc. They have the ornamental pears, for example, have taken over the state.
Yeah.
It's crowding out the wildlife and everything else. So that was a concern that I had. Was I think the structures are beautiful. I thought they were elegant when you first brought it before us. I still think so now. My only concern is making sure that the landscape doesn't cause the state of Missouri any more problems.
We will absolutely be sensitive to that.
Along that line, will you be planting a variety of trees, not all one kind, in case there's a disease that would hit and you'd lose everything?
Correct. Yeah. There is a variety, and that's not only to your point, just the overall success of the landscape, but also so it's attractive in all seasons. You know, different trees peak in different seasons, so layering the landscape in a way that it's always interesting, it's always dynamic, it always looks really nice is very important to it as well.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great project for this spot. I mean, it's nice. I know we've talked about some of the stormwater issues. Are you guys looking at permeables or anything, permeable surfaces instead of solid concrete on these trails and parking, or?
For the trails, yes, and for kind of the cabin parking off to the east, yes. For the main lot, that's still just we're intending that to be asphalt, but then providing enough below grade detention to make up for that runoff.
Yeah, and Chief, I noticed we have hydrants along 188th already, so we're good there. Yeah, there's a lot of trees in that area already, so I think it's good. Good project.
Great. Is there any other discussion on this item? Last call for questions. Okay. Seeing none, Brandy, will you please call the vote?
Dennis?
Me?
Dennis.
Oh, yeah,
Is that a yes?
yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
Mayor Boley?
Yes.
Deb,
Aye.
Alderman Wilson,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
5-0.
Awesome.
This item will go to the Board of Aldermen on next Tuesday night for their final review of the Planning Commission recommendation of approval.
Great.
There we go.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Jack. Really appreciate it. Talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack.
Jack,
Chief.
thank you. Hey, Damien, I vote that we try to upgrade Jack's internet service.
Actually, I'm going to make the recommendation that Jack stays at City Hall.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a jerk about it, but yeah. So
Hey, thank you guys. I'm kind of laughing because we did the first Zoom meeting right in the midst of, the start of COVID. And, here we are today conducting like daily stuff. I'm doing it daily with engineers and what have you. So I applaud the city for grabbing onto it and going.
What's funny is I think that was the only item on the agenda then, right?
Right.
In this, we did take care of technology a lot at City Hall 24 months ago. And we have, this project's been 100% virtual.
Yep.
So just shows, there's a will, there's a way. And it's also interesting, this agenda was 100% commercial.
Mhm.
No residential, no subdivisions.
Yep.
So, Jack, we have a full agenda next month too, right?
To be quite frank, the only thing right now is comp plan.
Yeah, that's pretty.
A full agenda.
That's a full agenda.
Yeah.
So,
There are no applications and the time is running quick to be gone for any applications on the agenda.
so Rand picked the right meeting to skip so Connor could.
Yeah. What the heck? Awesome. Well, thank you all. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll move us right along as we're nearing the 9 o'clock hour. Are there any public comments before we move to adjourn or open comments?
No,
I
thanks
have
for
to
everybody.
say that I'm sitting here in our beautiful council chambers and it's gorgeous and I'm really happy to be here by myself.
Next month you'll have TVs, Deb,
Oh, goody.
Ooh.
and Jack will be there because
Because his internet's terrible.
And we've been down at 8:30 if it hadn't been for his internet.
Oh,
Yeah, it dropped me twice, it looks like.
awesome. Well,
that we adjourn.
okay, there it is. Looking for the second. Boom, there. All righty. I think this is a voice vote, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
You have to say it.
Who was,
Brandy did.
No.
who was the second?
Oh, it was Melissa.
Okay. Yep, and then it's a voice vote.
Okay, perfect. All those in favor, please say aye.
Bye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, it passes. There we go. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You
Bye.
too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.